In this video we will learn what project planning is, and examine the fundamentals of self-project planning. Then we'll examine why project planning is critical to a project's success. Following that, we'll look at project planning tools and finally at these project planning steps. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, so you won't miss out our future updates. Without further ado, let us define project planning. The second phase of the project life cycle is project planning. The project life cycle is divided into 5 distinct phases, from initiation to closure. Today, we'll learn about this phase that occurs immediately after project initiation and is responsible for documenting the project's plan and defining additional requirements. Planning a project entails the following. The first and most important step is to define the project's objectives or outputs. We have to define the scope of the project to ensure that we understand what the project is all about and what can be expected from it. The third step is to create a schedule. This schedule is necessary for the project to run or perform a different task. Each task has a distinct start and end date. This enables the project to be completed within the allotted time and budget. Finally, we have the process of creating and generating progress reports in which everything that occurs during the duration of the project is documented. This assists in evaluating the project and assisting with future projects. Now, let's examine the fundamentals of project planning. The first fundamental is establishing the scope, cost, and availability of resources. This determination enables us to make a rough estimate of the time required to complete the project. It assists us in determining the number of people required and the skill set that they should possess. We can break down the project into smaller, more manageable sections with the aid of a work breakdown structure. The second fundamental is determining the nature of the problem. We can collect information and identify issues using a variety of techniques. Multiple issues may arise during the course of a project. In this case, multiple risks or issues are prioritized and the risk that requires immediate attention is addressed. To begin, stakeholders must be identified. When we identify stakeholders, we can determine who will be impacted and how, which enables us to gain a better understanding of the project and its stakeholders. Perhaps anyone, whether they are members of the project team, project managers, or customers, they assist and contribute to the project's success in the previous fundamental. We'll discuss his approach to defining the project's objectives. A project plan is created with the project team's requirements and the stakeholders' expectations in mind. Only when the project team meets the expectations of the stakeholders can we declare the project successful. Now that we've learned about project planning and its fundamentals, it's time to consider why it's so critical. Project planning helps reduce the cost and duration of a project by monitoring and optimizing each step. Employee satisfaction increases as a result of each employee being engaged in the team and contributing to the project's success. Project planning aids in the implementation of quality assurance by ensuring that each step's output is thoroughly tested. Finally, project planning assists in mitigating project risks by assisting in the analysis, prioritization, and management of those risks. Let's take a look at some project planning tools. Today's first tool is a Gantt chart. Gantt charts are one of the most popular project management tools because it assists in tracking the status of work at a particular point in time and their dependencies on one another. Gantt charts are useful for illustrating the various phases and steps involved in a project. The second technique we will discuss is the critical path method. Our CPM critical path method assists in scheduling project activities to ensure that they are completed on time. The critical path method determines the time required to complete the longest stretch of dependent tasks by focusing on the longest stretch of dependent tasks. The following tool is a technique for project evaluation and review, or PERT chart. PERT chart provides a graphical representation of the project's timeline, highlighting the autonomy and simplicity of various tasks. This tool not only assists in the creation of a schedule, but also in the coordination of all team members. We will examine its work breakdown structure using the 4 tools. A work breakdown structure is a very common tool that enables a team to break down its work into manageable sections. The work breakdown structure is a two-step process that aids in the efficient completion of the project. The final tool that we'll look at is project documentation. Documentation is a critical component of the project life cycle. The documentation of a project assists in comprehending the errors made during the project and, more importantly, provides guidelines for the subsequent project. Now that we are aware of the various tools available for project planning, it is critical that we understand the necessary steps involved in project planning. There are 7 stages to project planning. Let's take a closer look at each one. The first step is to identify stakeholders. As previously stated, stakeholders can be anyone. They could be team members, project managers, or customers. By identifying stakeholders, we can ascertain the expectations and requirements that must be met during this project. This helps us visualize the project and establish the project scope. Thus, the next step is to define the project scope. This assists in establishing a list of specific project objectives and deliverables that must be met throughout the duration of the project. After we've defined the project scope, it's time to define and prioritize the project's objectives. The initial concepts are now developed, and the final steps necessary to complete the project are defined in the following step. The deliverables are determined after determining that the project's deliverables are the sole reason for its creation. This step entails determining the nature of the deliverables and their associated deadlines. The following step is to create a project schedule. The project schedule establishes the parameters for when a task should begin and when it should conclude. This enables the project's growth to be tracked and, later, progress reports to be generated. The following step is risk analysis. This step is critical to the overall success of the project. It assists in identifying risks, prioritizing them, and implementing measures to mitigate them. The final step in planning a project is to generate progress reports. This step informs stakeholders about the project's progress and allows all involved team members to monitor the project's progress. We appreciate the explanation and look forward to planning projects on a budget and with a higher standard of quality. This concludes this session. Hope you found it educational and beneficial. We appreciate your time and interest and hope to see you again soon. Subscribe to if you enjoy this video. Please hit like and share this video on your social media accounts.